There, now it is for sure. Okay. Let's call our meeting to order. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Think we'll be changing much, but we'll go from there. Okay, all those in favor then say aye. Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes of our November 16th meeting. Okay, Doug, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Changes, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment, we do have some people here. Anybody here for public comment? State your name.
Want me to stand right here?
Go ahead.
Right. Melvin Smith, I'm with the Milltown Snowmobile Club. Recently we have a bike rental that's gonna rent bikes out for coming down to Gandy or whatever, the electric bikes. And we were concerned as a club about the usage of that, the MAU or the master plan, how that works as far as what rates they have, what rates they don't have, and what rates we have, the 15-mile-an-hour thing. There are different classifications on the state, but we were curious about all that and how the county works in it on the game.
Good question. Well, you will put that on our agenda.
That's what I was.
We can't really answer it now.
And that's what I'm trying to check out to see if
Yeah,
it's
we can
done
put it on the agenda.
on it.
Okay,
So just because we were all curious in the club, we're curious how that's gonna work.
okay.
Hmm.
We will put that on our next one. We'll have that on our next agenda, kind of for parks to see electric bikes.
And I'm sure the other thing that's gonna come up today, gonna be answered later on about Woodley to see how good that's going and if we could use that as parking for snowmobile. I think that's gonna come up later on today, is that correct?
Woodley,
Yeah,
the update? Well, it's open, you can park there, yeah, it's parking.
yeah, I didn't know if it was open or not.
We'll find out here in a couple minutes.
Thank you.
Anyone else, public comment?
I would like to.
Yes, sir. Would you come up here and
Yep.
state your name so everybody can see you?
Marvin Sloper. I am part of the Milltown Snow Rover Snowmobile Club also. And I have them same concerns regarding who is allowed on there, who isn't allowed on there. And do they have to have lights? Or do they have a fee they have to pay, or how that all goes together? And if they can operate year round, or if it's only time frame, 6-month period, or however that's decided. Also, can they? What am I noting? Yeah, what fees they're responsible for, and if that allows anybody to operate on there at a lesser than 15-mile-an-hour speed limit.
All right. We will do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Right. Close the public. We don't have another supervisor. No. No. Mr. Moe, yours is short and sweet.
Yes, sir. Just a couple updates on the trail projects. Going on in Sterling, we're up in Sterling on the ATV loop, removing some stumps, this past month. The sawmill trail, the brushing project down there and adding gravel on the sawmill, that is complete. We started on the warming shelter down at D.D. Kennedy for this cross-country ski group. On that one, December 12th, the Snowmobile Club will start packing the trails, the rail trails for preparation for snow season. The Woodley parking lot is open. It's good to go now. The entrance is off of County Road H right there. With that. Also, the bridge on the Gandy under 270th Street there was hit again last month. DNR is still coordinating on the repairs on that bridge, so it is closed. The rumors going over it, but they have found an alternate trail to go around that bridge, so that'll be there. We met with DNR a couple weeks ago on the Stour, on maintaining the Stour. Met supervisors. One of them was Dan Yukoviak and his boss on our trail maintenance and what we're doing down there, and if there's any issues of what we're doing down there. They stated it's a well-maintained trail, well above the standards of our other rail trails that are around the state met. So we were planning on meeting this morning at 7 with a couple people from the Friends of the Stour. That meeting ended up being canceled this morning due to conflicts in schedule, so we're rescheduling that one. Just to get out in front of it and make some contact with them to let them know how we're maintaining the trail and why we're maintaining the trail for all the user groups. Right now, staff is working on bids for next year's projects and equipment. Hopefully the skid steer and the brushing attachments that will go out here shortly to Department of Administration for approval for those right now. That's the update on there. And
All right.
projects.
I have a question for you,
Oh.
sir.
No.
I'm sorry.
Any questions from any? Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah. You can ask them after.
Okay.
Sure, catch them. All right, thank you. Yes, Eric, you are up.
Morning.
Good morning.
So another productive year has passed or is coming to an end here for our Land and Water Resources Department, and we'd like to wrap up our year with our Land and Water Stewardship Award. So thanks for having us today. For those that aren't familiar with this award, next slide, please. We've got two categories, the Land Stewardship and the Water Stewardship Award. Each can be awarded to an individual or a group, and each award winner has been a valued part and partner of the Land and Water Resources Department and Soil and Water Resource Management in the past year or years prior. Each award winner has dedicated a significant amount of time assisting with initiatives related to soil and water resource management. Each winner is a leader and has influenced many of their peers to engage in resource management in our county and continue to make Polk County the best place to live, work, and play. Next slide. Okay. Our 2022 Land Stewardship Award winner has made a level of impact that we've not seen in our local ag community. This individual has guided hundreds and possibly influenced thousands of new and old ag producers within the rotational grazing community in Indiana. He has organized grazing schools and has been influential in making grazing planners available for our local ag community. He has participated in our Polk County Land and Water Resources Plan development. He has spearheaded 2 farmer-led watershed councils, one in Polk, one in Burnett and Washburn County. Because he truly believes in practices he's promoting, he's been a part of all of this while operating his own grazing operation on his own. Next slide, please. So our 2022 Land Stewardship Award winner is Lynn Johnson. And unfortunately, Lynn was not able to be here with us today. So we'll get this award to him. But it is my opinion that Lynn is arguably the single most influential volunteer within the ag community in Polk and surrounding counties. For approximately 20 years, Lynn has been a keystone feature within the Northwest Grazers Network as a mentor, facilitator, organizer, resource, and visionary. If the topic involves grazing, Lynn is within that conversation. I've had the pleasure of learning from Lynn and collaborating with Lynn for my entire career in Polk County. He's deeply admired by his peers and partners. I've never met anyone that is more giving of themselves or giving of their knowledge to advance the practice of rotational grazing in Polk County and the state of Wisconsin. So for these reasons, we have chosen Lynn Johnson as the recipient of our 2022 Land Stewardship Award. So we'll get this to him, and I'm sorry that he wasn't able to be here today. Next, I'll have Caitlin come up and present our 2022 Water Stewardship Award.
Thanks, Eric. I'm really excited to present the Water Stewardship Award to Steve Arducer today. And we chose him for the Water Stewardship Award for his participation in 2 different monitoring programs. And so we have a lot of focus in our department on training volunteers to go out and collect data, and we offer a number of different programs where we do that. And the first one is Project Red, and this is a program developed, it's like a statewide program through River Alliance and Wisconsin DNR, where we do a training, giving volunteers the knowledge on monitoring and identifying invasive species, specifically in rivers. And we offered our first training in Polk County in 2013, and Steve attended that first training and has been involved with the program ever since, coming for refreshers. And the big thing that Steve does that makes him unique is that he goes out and actually monitors on his own. So that's kind of the main goal of the program, is to get citizen data. And so Steve's been participating with that since 2013. And this year we offered the Water Action Volunteers Training Program for the first time in Polk County. And this is again another river monitoring program, more for water quality. So dissolved oxygen, temperature, biotic index, flow, that type of thing. And Steve participated in our first training for that, and then has since then, I think, already done 3 different data collection points in 2022 already. And I just thought it was really cool that, looking back, the first training that we offered, Steve was at both of those for this. So thanks for all your work on that, Steve. And the photo, I dug through the files and found this old photo from 2013 of a Project Red training. Thanks,
Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very good. You got Eric here to answer questions too on the soil erosion. You know, and this- Eric too, so he doesn't run off. He doesn't have to.
Come back.
We're gonna snap some photos.
He was shaking out, that's what I'm saying.
Just go snap some photos.
Oh, you're gonna, yes. Well, I suppose we have to wait a minute or so to leave the public open that up. I know there's, yeah, everybody got a laugh, so it's. We get the. I don't think I marked it on again either.
Oh, your eyeliner break or what? Exactly.
That's why ordinance amendments are next.
I know, I
I'm
bought,
good.
I bought some extras.
Mine's yellow.
That was interesting. Some of the stuff. But I think I know by my clock, that clock's like a minute slow. What's that? Sheriff, it's about a minute off, isn't it?
Well, not anymore, because it's 9:14 on my watch. That's it's 9:14 too. You're never gonna.
My official timekeeper, I gotta be careful.
Go now. Okay, good to go now.
We're safe.
Right.
Yeah, that covered this. Good. All right. You want to read in the notice? We will open up a public hearing for the stormwater.
I need to read the notice.
I think we should read the notice in, so it's, as long as we're being videoed, in case somebody does, they know what it's about.
The public is
The Polk County Environmental Services Committee will hold a public hearing on proposed amendments on chapter 12, article 3, the stormwater erosion control ordinance. Within the Polk County Code of Ordinances on Wednesday, December 7th, starting at 9:15 here at the Polk County Jail. Proposed amendments to define applicable stormwater and erosion control review authorities between county zoning, land and water resources, and or the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, dependent on the scale and type of the project and its location. DNR required permitting for disturbances greater than 1 acre. Land and water will review sites less than 1 acre of total disturbance. The amendments also clearly define activities exempt from the ordinance, including but not limited to agricultural practices associated with planting, growing, spraying, cultivating, or harvesting crops. Routine maintenance performed by municipalities for project sites that involve 5 acres of land disturbance and some agricultural related construction. And that's what the stormwater requirements mean. And the amendments also add definitions to ag facilities for practices, driveways, UPs. Lastly, rain garden design specs have been added to. So, this was part of resolution 27-2, which was approved. Last month, it was presented and refined last month with Eric here and myself. It will be on the January county board agenda. And yeah, again, in a nutshell, areas that are disturbed 1 acre or more, according to DNR review. Areas that are half an acre to 1 acre or water. In the event that DNR would like us to review those larger sites or above 1 acre, the water team will review for $175 review fee. As mentioned in the public notice, there's certain exemptions for municipalities, agriculture, and agricultural practices. And then there was some housekeeping.
I think we all had the red line from last time, didn't we? It was the one that we went through pretty much.
And that was with the resolution that she.
That we passed through.
Yeah.
Kept going.
November, I think I believe.
Chapter 12 was just the next one.
That's the next one.
That's the next one, that's right. Is there any questions on the stormwater position? We have no other questions. So we could shut it down. We went through it, so then we will close the public hearing. And, I think we moved that on last time, didn't we? So we're good. Okay, so this was just an informational.
This was just a public hearing,
For
which is the best practice.
Okay,
And they said it'll be on the January county board.
okay. All right. That is good. You did it so good last time. Yes.
Yeah.
So well done. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, Jason.
Pull up the comp and the shore document first. All right, so I kind of jumped ahead a little bit on your work plan too, because in January, we were going to be talking about non-metallic mining in our short-term borrow pits. We were also going to be talking about adult entertainment, adult establishments. Since we were bringing the ordinance amendments to you today for the viewing corridor change that was done as part of Act 200 in 2021, and then the fence rules of Act 105, I figured I might as well jump ahead. We'll put it all in one draft for you here to look at. So with that, Claire's got it up. So far, I have not gotten in trouble with our IT department for Googling adult entertainment and adult establishments. There's a lot of definitions on what that is. It's a very subjective term. But what I was trying to do for the purposes of our ordinance was to try to find something that covered everything from an activity or the exotic dancer to the retail sales of adult content. And so this definition here, I thought fit the best. St. Croix County has recently went through and did an adult entertainment section in their ordinance. It's about 2 pages long. I don't think we have to go into that amount of detail or depth. But all these uses, some of them were part of my Google definition and some of them came from St. Croix County. So I'm not sure that we really need to have all of them listed, but it does kind of capture everything from all spectrums. You'll see farther down, and one of my big questions in that for the committee to determine is what zoning districts do we want to make this a conditional use in? Most ordinances require adult entertainment use to be a conditional use. Right now, I've got it proposed in our general business commercial and our recreational business commercial classifications. Not sure it belongs in a recreational business area, but that's up to you. So you'll see more of that as we get going down. Go down a little bit to the next red. That's one aspect that we're going to be going over quite a bit through this text. The other aspect is limited short-term non-metallic mining. As our ordinance is today, it's currently underneath our mining district exclusively. And instead of repeating that text through multiple zoning districts, because now we're proposing to allow this to be done in the residential Ag 5 district, the Ag 10 and the Ag 20. Okay, the big points with this, how this differentiates from a normal mine is it's not a pre-existing mine. So it's something that's new and that it's opened up, hauled out and reclaimed, and that within a 1-year period of time. So we got 12 months that it's open and it's limited to 1 acre per parcel. So we kind of had some issues in that last year with, opening up these mines and wanting to keep on mining. Like I'll open up an acre, reclaim it, open up another acre, reclaim it, and kind of working across the whole parcel number or whole parcel. And this here, what we're trying to do is still allow for somebody that's got a building site and they want to take and go into the hill on their property and take all the sand that they need for their site out of that and be able to close it up. Or if we've got a town or the county for that matter, that is doing a road construction project and they want to raise a road instead of hauling all that material 10, 15 miles away and that from the nearest pit, maybe there's a landowner there along that road that they can get the material that they need. That's what this provision is really for, which brings me down to D. Basically broke it up into a private use and a public use scenario. So private use means that the property owner owns the land and the material being sourced from the short-term mine is being used on their land. Public, and that means that a county or municipality is the user of the material and it's being used for one of their projects. So I left that open because we do have some towns in that have parks and stuff too. And the town itself might be building a new maintenance garage, for example. And so that way in that they're not limited just to road construction activities. Okay. Logan in our office, it's one of the things in that we haven't ever had defined before. But we would really like to have some clarification on what it is a retaining wall. And so basically try to define it here, try to indicate what they're usually built out of. And then the biggest thing with this definition is this last sentence. And that a single roll of these materials is not considered a retaining wall. And the reason why that's significant is because a retaining wall is included in the definition of a structure in our shoreline zoning ordinance and the 59,692 statute. So we have to require retaining walls to be back 75 feet. What we do with these is people can use large stone as long as they're only one rock high, and that to create a retaining terrace or a berm, and that down within the 75-foot setback. We're lenient on that, but my stance is, what's the difference between 2-foot stone to hold my mulch around my tree or a 6-inch stone to hold my mulch around my tree? And we're not actually constructing or building a structure until we start stacking material on top of each other, because then you're physically trying to create, something that's tall. So, so I think we're good with that. It has been ran by the DNR throughout our group. We're very consistent in that with like Sawyer County and Barron County on that philosophy. So, we kind of got maybe an oversight in the ordinance right now too. Logan also brought this up. Right now on a class 1 lake, so our Deer Lake, our Bowen Lake, you can take and have up to 6 poultry, and that within the riparian parcel. Okay, it's going to be zoned R1, and that's just an exemption that we've basically refined out of our general provisions. But there is no 4-legged farming, and that on any class 1 parcel. So instead of changing our general provision, because then it would apply to all lake lots as far as not having farm animals, so our little class 2s and 3s, and that wouldn't be able to have dairy cows on them. I took and added a provision underneath the allowed uses in the R1 district for both shoreline and comprehensive, and that to allow for up to 6 poultry as long as there's no roosters, which is consistent with our general provisions. The areas that this would affect would be like up around McKeith Lake, Cushing area. We've got a couple lakes up there that are fairly small lakes. They're class 2s and 3s, but they've got major subdivisions on them. And so those areas and that were put as R1 zoning, but they're still, 2-acre lots. So this would allow those people and that the ability to have poultry. So it kind of makes sense if you're going to allow it on a smaller lot on a class 1, that it would also be allowed on a bigger lot. And then this is also kind of consistent with the new trends of, having your own little hobby farm and having your own eggs and stuff. So it is only 6 birds per parcel. So. Okay, so now we're in the RA5 zoning classification. And as a permitted use, a limited short-term non-metallic mining would be in there.
What's short term?
Short-term, and that would be 1 year or less.
I wonder, do we have that?
That's in the definition up on top. Yep.
Okay, so that is defined. All right.
Yep. And that's the reason in that for just having it have a normal land use permit is because then we have a start date and we know when it's to be completed and reclaimed. So.
Okay.
Ag 10, you're gonna see it, same thing. And because it's in the Ag 10 zoning classification, it's automatically gonna transfer into the Ag 20 classification. We'll always commercial now. Okay, so scroll up just a little bit. Okay, so here's a conditional use. I added an adult establishment in there. That's underneath our general zoning in the comprehensive areas outside of the shoreland areas. And it's going to be in the B2 district as well. So we got to have it in some district. It seems very likely that it should be in our commercial B1 district. It's just whether or not you think it needs to be in the B2 district. It is a conditional use though, so you could always, have conditions and limit what kind of, business it is. So, yeah, it's right there.
Do we have any existing ones? Say adult entertainment stuff. I don't know if we have any. Or do they do a temporary deer hunting or something, dancers or something? Or do they have-
Yes. I know the problem.
Especially meant for
That's
men.
especially better.
I know the Brown team has had a charity event, I think, for the last 2 years. And that normal or average Joe strip show and that, has been there. It's usually the first part of November or so. We've also got, Greg Ziegler's coffee shop on Highway 8. And that has been since sold and that out of the coffee shop, and then it kind of started as a smoke shop. But then when I drove by the other day, and I don't drive that way that often, I seen something about adult establishment or bookstore or something. I've not been in there, but so that's a brand new one. I've also had some inquiries about what the county's rules are for these establishments. Because now the town of Alden has changed from a dry town, so there's kind of been some interest in having some kind of an establishment in Alden. Okay, so.
So there is some interest in it, so.
So, into our mining classification, basically provisions A, B, and C, we just moved up in that when we defined the term up in the front part. Basically kept them the same, just beefed up, the 1 year period, beefed up the 1 acre provision, just to provide more clarity that it is on that parcel. And then all we need here then is just the actual use itself. So it looks like we cut language, but it really just moved it up and made it more robust. Okay, forgot AL on conditional. General provisions, this is kind of an oversight that should be clarified. Accessory building, so we're talking about an actual little shed. We're not talking about a patio or a retaining wall. It's something that we've had a few questions on, because before, when it said accessory structure is patios, retaining walls. So in other words, if I build an 8x8 patio, I don't need a permit. That's not, so it's just for accessory building. The rubber made sheds is what we're trying to exempt out there. Another oversight that I'm trying to clear up, last spring, and that we changed the 400 square foot bunkhouse provision to 1,000 square feet. So this text here comes directly from a section that we've already got, 42-112. So I just copied and pasted that over here so that's the same, because what we're running into is the way Unicode did it. I say it's an oversight, but they updated the comprehensive side, but not the shoreline, or they did the shoreline and not the comprehensive. And so that's what we're trying to just make sure that both of those are the same. At the same time that we did that 1,000 square foot, we took it and said that you can have a holding tank and that they are not required to have and that sewer system for the house and the bunkhouse on the property, that they can do a separate sewer system for the bunkhouse. So those two provisions are just to make it the same as what we've got elsewhere. And then we also increase the height to 35 feet. If you can go down a little bit, Claire. So that's up to 35 feet. So, okay. This is our R1 zoning in the shoreland area. And we added in there the 6 poultry again. And then in this zoning classification, we can jump down quite a ways in that, because our RA5 has the mining, or our Ag 10 and our Ag 20 will all have that limited short-term mine. So we're keeping that the same as what's in the comp. In the shoreland area, we do not, stop there. And that we do not have a B1 general business commercial classification. We've only got a B2 classification and then a small business commercial. So we got rec commercial and then small business commercial, put adult establishments in both of those to keep it somewhat consistent with the comp. I think we can go down quite a bit now. Mining, again, change that to match. So seems repetitive, but we're really working in 2 different ordinances. So. Okay. So this is a list of exempt structures that are allowed within the 75-foot setback. Typically, you can think of it as boat houses, pedestrian accesses down to the water, TV, broadcast, receivers, antennas, that kind of stuff. There's been three things in that we need to add in there. One is bridges. I mean, it's just something that we've always kind of just said, yeah, it's fine, because they're always requiring a chapter 30 DNR permit anytime you have a bridge going over a stream or lake or anything. But we should really have that clarified in our ordinance. I is exactly Act 105, and that is very specific, because you can think of something that's 15 feet tall for a fence, but yet our ordinance limits a privacy fence to 6 feet tall. But we do have to have these provisions, 1 through 5 of I in there, because that was part of Act 105, is very specific. And I didn't even think that we would ever have a case like this. But Logan was working on a compliance issue up on County Road G along Half Moon Lake. The guy had built a fence without a permit. The neighbor behind on the landward side of the road called and complained. And with these provisions and that, the owner has been able to rebuild the fence and even taller in that than it was originally. Because this statute fit perfect. Basically, it's got to be at least 2 feet off the water, got to be outside the highway right away. And that is not less than 10 feet from the edge of the roadway or the blacktop. So basically, as long as they're past their 33-foot road right away, they're good. They can go 15 feet tall, and it's going perpendicular to the shoreline. County Road G is a classic example. It fit all the marks. So anyway, and then this is just another clarification. So it makes sense that if you have a project that is required to take and capture excess runoff, that you would allow those structures, rain gardens, infiltration pits, to be between the house and the lake, because that's where we really need them, and that to take and slow down that water. And so we're exempting a rain garden or an infiltration pit and that from the 75-foot setback for collecting the runoff from those impervious surfaces. So that makes sense, and that's in the DNR's new model ordinance. So that was Act 105 on I. Now we got Act 200 coming up in the shoreline protection area. So in 2015, the viewing corridor language was changed in that to be 35 feet for every 100 feet of shoreline. Counties or some counties took that very direct. And so if you had 99 feet of shoreline, you didn't get to have a viewing corridor. We've always administered it as 35%. But there was no cap in the 2015 language either. So if you had 1,000 feet of shoreline, you could have a 350-foot wide viewing corridor. Act 200 basically said that you have a minimum viewing corridor of 10 feet. And then after that, it's 35% of your frontage. So if you got a 100-foot lot, it's still 35 feet. But in those cases where the landowner owns a lot of frontage, and that the viewing corridor is capped now at 200 feet. And that's how it was way back, early 2000s, and that they had that 200-foot cap at that time. So basically that language there came directly because of Act 200. That's the only thing that we have to change.
Jason, before we move on.
Yeah.
I've heard that several times. What is it, 10 feet exactly?
Okay, so if you've got a 15-foot lot, you got a narrow strip of land going down to the lake, you can clear 10 feet. And that, whereas if you were underneath the 35% rule, you'd only get to clear about 6 feet. So every lot, no matter how much frontage, I mean, if you only had a 10-foot strip of land going down to the lake, you could clear cut that 10 feet. So
That's 50-foot lots and stuff.
I guess I didn't know how to apply that.
It was weird.
you know,
Had to have.
so that'd be the only case in that it would apply. So anything that, it'd have to be a strip of land for an access 30 feet or less in order to have that 10-foot minimum kick in. But not such a big deal here, but on, Dane County and stuff on some of them highly developed lakes. Big deal. So. Okay, and then we can scroll all the way down to, I think, page 62 it is. Oh, Yeah, there we are. Supervisor Olson had reached out to us and that about clarifying the permit revoke process. And then to extend the reapply period from 3 months to 12 months. And with that, getting rid of the warning. So now this is going back to what it was prior to 2019, when we were working on all the tourist rooming house amendments. That's when all of our uses in that for a tourist rooming house changed. And so I went back to an old ordinance. Basically, number one goes back to the same. So this is 2015 language, automatically deemed revoked. And then conditional and permitted uses, and that a property with a revoked permit shall be required to wait 12 months before they reapply for another conditional or permitted use. So I'm gonna turn that over to Supervisor Olson, and then if he has any suggestions or changes.
Yeah, so I guess the thought here is that we give a warning, ticket, and about 4 times later, you're getting revoked. Well, I can cheat the system. I mean, how many times am I gonna get caught in a 12-month period? You know, it's almost like there's really there's no repercussions for breaking the rules because of all the warning system, you know, all the warnings you get, the ticket, and every 12 months, it just starts over again. You know, so
Well, our office has revoked some conditional uses in that without a warning in the last year. And one thing I'll say about changing the top is that it also comes back to here, where it says violations of any of these conditions on a conditional use permit shall be deemed a violation of this article and result in an immediate revocation of the conditional use permit. So that's what our office has used for our discretion in those cases, and that where there's a public health safety issue, there's definitely a verified complaint that is a violation. So
But
that
then they
may
can turn around and
just,
just, I mean, today they could turn around and fly again tomorrow.
correct, if we use that other warning provision, you know.
But I mean,
This one, they can't right away. Or no, this doesn't say they can't reapply.
this doesn't say they can't reapply again. Right?
But they can shut it down that day
Right,
on that condition.
but they can shut it down that day, but I can turn around and reapply again tomorrow.
That's why we need that other
That's,
piece.
that's my point is
Yeah,
that,
we need the other.
is there's
piece.
no, if I get caught today, if I get caught and they pull my license and I fix it by Friday, on Monday, I'm standing back in the office pulling a permit for a tourist rooming house. And it cost me 1 weekend to get caught, maybe. You know, maybe 1 weekend if I had it rented out, you know, if it was rented out this weekend.
So you guys as a community have spent a lot of time on developing conditions for conditional uses. And that whether it's tourist rooming houses, whether it's CAFOs, you know, you guys have developed those rules. You think those are reasonable rules and that to comply with. And that I'm gonna use the occupancy and that, for example. And I don't care if you're talking about a CAFO or you're talking about a tourist rooming house. And that by the time we get a complaint, so they've already made the neighbor mad enough and that to file a written complaint with our office. And that, how far after the normal amount of rental days are they? You know, I mean, if we're at 180 days, do we get notified at 300 days and they've been able to run for another 120 days? And then they know that we have to issue them a warning. And then we have to get another complaint. And that in order to take and go forward to do it again. Same thing if we're talking about animal producer and maybe exceeding the number of animal units that they were permitted. You know, how long is it gonna take? I mean, when you're counting 1,000 animal units, by the time we go out there, they're gonna say, well, I just ran a full year. I was able to finish out all my heifers and sell them and I didn't get full, you know, so same thing.
Well, no, it was just a thought. I mean, it seems like now, you know, and I'm not opposed to going even to a warning and then it's gone or something, but right now there's realistically 3 warnings before it gets pulled. I mean, the 2 warnings, the ticket, and then gone, and that just seems like it's
Too long.
And there
it's
are
too
those,
long, 'cause-
and there are those that take advantage of that. And then it
Yeah.
just gets people. The neighbors.
Neighbors have that last one.
Frustrated because,
And they're, you know.
well, and then they think, they get mad at you guys because they say, well, you're not doing anything. But in essence, you are.
Good for the goose, is good for the gander, you know, and that, so, and that if the neighbor gets 2 warnings and that, then I know that I can, you know, break the rules a little bit and I can get by with it as well, you know,
Yeah.
so. So it kind of undermines your ordinance is what it does. It undermines that because
Yeah.
that question of, is it gonna be revoked or are they gonna give me a warning this time? Same thing when you're driving down the road and that you try to comply with the speed limit because you don't know that you're gonna get a warning. And that, but if you did know that you're gonna get a warning, everybody would be likely to probably be a little bit more willing to speed.
I know what,
Didn't we talk about this, about something else, kind of the same thing, and then because then there was the clause if they didn't have conditional use or they didn't have a permit, we could come in and apply right away.
well, yeah, if they do it without a permit,
Yeah.
there's no penalty. That's what we're trying, I think we gotta find out. What is the penalty? That they have to wait 12 months? Is that the only penalty?
That's a penalty in
I
that.
mean, do we
But I mean.
make it that they have to pay the permit, the double permit fee because they're doing it or something like that?
Oh, and that if we
So it's
revoke
12
the
months.
permit, it'd be a 12-month wait. That's
It's the 12-month wait. It's the only penalty right now. Okay. Okay, so that,
Well, but.
See, and then that-
Today would be the penalty.
well, so that's the only penalty is 12 months that you have to wait.
But if you didn't have a permit and you were still operating and you got caught,
You could walk right in and get one.
I'm not sure if it's relevant or not in that, but the 12-month waiting period to reapply. And that is consistent with any of our variance and conditional use applications, because if you come in and you apply for a winery as a conditional use and you get denied, you have to wait a year before you can take and reapply for the same thing.
So that's for
So that is
consistent with our other stuff. So that doesn't make
Underneath
sense.
Board of Adjustment procedure ordinance.
But there's no monetary for all our work, for your work going out there. And all this and investigating it and do all
We
this.
do have citation authority, which we could do, you know, in that, but citations aren't gonna remedy the problem. You know, I mean, if there's a public
Correct, yeah.
health risk or if they've ever been renting too many days, well, it's not gonna solve it. I mean, so.
I think the biggest deterrent is the fact that if I'm that tourist rooming house owner, and I know I can't rent for the next 12 months, that's
That's a big.
that's the big
That's
thing. I
pretty
mean, I guess I'll say, you know, maybe as the county, we're not getting paid for Jason's time, but all of a sudden, we're making that tourist rooming house. I mean, we hear all the time, we screen our applicants. This way, you would
Yeah.
really want to make sure you screen your applicants, because if your second one of the year gets you your permit pulled and you got to cancel for the year,
Yeah,
that's it, you know,
for your
where
season.
today it's like, okay, now if, you know, 6 months later I get caught again and 3 weeks after that, I'm still good. And, you know, I don't know if it should be the very first one. I mean, should there be a warning? I'm not against that. You know, I'm against where we're at today of 2 warnings, a citation, and then the 4th time. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, at 180 days, that's realistically, every 40, 50 days, you can get turned in and get caught for something and never have to stop.
We've always administered it, you know, with, you know, trying to use a little common sense. If a renter,
some
that,
discretion,
you know,
yeah.
maybe pulls off of the driveway and they're, you know, maybe on the neighbor's back lot, you know, for an hour, obviously, okay, big. You know, and that, but when it's a blatant violation and that done by the property owner that knows what the conditions are. And then if they're advertising for such even, you know, and that is a little bit different because that owner is aware of those conditions and they should be accountable to their actions. And that, in my opinion, and that, but a renter, anybody can get a bad renter. I think anybody that's ever rented their place would know that you can have a bad renter. So we do use a lot of discretion in those cases, so.
That,
How do you know, sorry,
yep, go ahead.
how do you know at the location for the 12 months, they can't back for another one? How do you know with, I mean, they could be into their season like these guys are saying, and you get, boom, you get it pulled for 12 months. You have a calendar full of people now. You gonna be that bad guy and say, okay, technically you should be, but are you gonna be that bad guy and go down the list and go, sorry, got my license pulled for 12 months? You know, where's the area here that says this is truly gonna happen?
Well, that's where.
But they're not gonna operate in that 12 months.
So,
What happens if they do?
and that's, so what we've seen with short-term rentals, I'm just gonna go back to that. Is the other renters, the other people that are permitted on that same body of water are the ones that are actually filing the complaints. And so they're gonna be policing it. And that because maybe they have some openings at their place. And so if I can shut down them when they got it booked, you know, and that now I got people that are gonna be trying to find a place on the same lake. And so now those people are gonna come and rent from me. And so that's gonna be the policing effort, you know, and that, and obviously, in that, I mean, if we have strange vehicles in the driveway, we went through this all with the Arkells, you know, I mean, it's not an easy thing to prove necessarily, but I mean, as staff, we can always swing by too and, you know, see what their names are and.
Because you're not really, you're not permitting or non-permitting, rather revoking the owner's rights to be there. So I mean,
Only their renters.
yeah, I mean, they would be the, oh, well, that's just family or friends or, you know, what I'm saying? There's gonna be some excuse that they're,
That's where the complaints, if, that's where they are kills. Too many complaints at one place. If it's gonna happen every day there, somebody's gonna go there every day. And then he'll start writing citations, I think, and just say, here, it's just like a. speeding
I still
ticket.
want there to be that gray, you know what I'm saying? Either there needs to be or, no, don't wanna be too strict, but yet. A lot of people.
But I think that comes down to it's the neighbors. I mean, I don't really cover I cover 2 lakes and both of them, I think. Yeah, if I got my permit pulled and the next day Jason was pulling in and staying, the neighbors would be on the phone saying, hey, a strange vehicle with, you know.
Right.
They're gonna be.
And the
policing it
license
more than
plate
what we-
just pulled in, you know.
Then they'll say, it's my cousin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, we live it. Oh, and it's crazy. It's hard to.
But where we would draw the line is in that, okay, and that, you know, show us that you paid or you didn't pay. You know, I mean, that's where it would come down. And then you get into bigger issues with taxes, you know, and that kind of stuff too, you know, and that they're gonna lie about their income, you know, so.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot of, yeah, a lot
We're
more.
starting to go down a rabbit hole.
Well, that's when we get, hopefully we can get help to help us a little too on some of that, you know, if it's a violation that way. That they
Health
should.
department does not revoke their license.
I know.
That, even if we revoke ours and that, it should
You won't revoke.
basically suspended in that until they get zoning approval again. But it just basically automatically expires the following.
But if it's a health issue, do they revoke it then?
Yep, I think they would.
Then they would, okay. So if it's something different than a zoning issue, if it's a health issue, they would step in. at
Yeah, I mean,
least.
we can't-
Okay,
We can't, can I say, protect against trying to cheat the system.
No.
Because the
No.
system, you know, face it, we love to try and cheat the system. Well, maybe not everybody.
Pretty much.
Thank you. Makes me look less guilty.
There's that 1 hour of darkness, you can do whatever you. Yeah, the one thing I'm gonna say that you were asking about fines and different things. You brought this up last week. What you hear about these tourist brewing houses, how much money they make in a year. When you watch, if you go online and look how much they're getting a night for each different
That's
one.
crazy.
A year suspension is a big fine
Enormous.
that's what they're getting. Yeah,
to them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I said, I don't know that pulling it right away is right. I just don't agree with where we're at today because you can really cheat the system bad.
well, I think if we took that out and leave it to their discretion a little bit, people would come in, I mean. Because obviously somebody's gonna try to cheat it, they're gonna get caught. It's gonna be obvious.
One thing in that you guys just gave us the guidance on too, and I'm not trying to interrupt you guys, Rowdy, but you guys, and that with Bob here, that had an enforcement procedure.
Yes.
You know, and we went through, we've got our double checks and balances there. And that's what we're gonna be following. So maybe that helps provide a little bit of clarity as well, you know, that we've got those priorities to that, and if a violation is a repeat offense or if it's blatant or, you know, that, then that can accelerate that process, you know, that's, we've already got that kind of laid out. But if we're not to those thresholds, if it's just that renter, you know, then we're gonna do the warning letter and stuff like that underneath our.
I read this. I don't know if I can explain it correctly, but we used to have 3 months and 6 months. It just seems like we're jumping into a pretty big fine. You know, if I don't go 6 months and then a year, something like that, I don't know why.
Yeah, no,
It just seems
I'm,
like we've jumped up long ways from 3 months to 6 months. To just 1 year.
Well, the year is he's to be consistent with other permitting.
I understand that. I'm just bringing,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
saying what.
and I'm not against either one of them. I'm against just letting them get again. I mean, there needs to be some,
I go away from, like you say, a warning. It's a violation,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah,
And they use discretion, so it's.
yeah, I'm just looking at making a way to know that we're, you know, that we're not allowing them to walk back in and
To be that.
get that permit again instantly there, because like you say, it's the ability to not rent out, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and that's way bigger than any fine we can impose.
They were that start between 3 months, 6 months. I mean, but I didn't lose it much closer, so
Yeah.
they didn't lose any.
Yeah, they want to be able to just write a check, move on.
Yeah.
Here's $100, see ya.
Well, not even that.
That's basically what they want to do.
But the 3 months suspension was a big deal.
Well, now it will be if it's 180 days and they lose 90 of them, they'll lose half their season. Right now,
So, but then becomes the other issue is
6 months is their whole season. If it's
well,
100
6 months is
yeah,
the whole
180
season, but what
days.
if I lose my license on the second to the last week of my season? So
You move your 180 days over.
my 180 days are up, you know,
Anyway, so it doesn't matter.
and there again, I'm not against it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say,
Now it's-
how we look at these.
Well, it always gets more complicated than it starts out.
Yeah. So let's leave the lines in for now and go that way. Because we do have it over here in conditions. If they do it, it's, you lose it, it's a violation. So if they know that you're gonna lose it for 12 months, I would think they would clean up their act with some discretion. Because if you're called to the same 1, 3, 4 times, the warning might, you know, it's a waste of piece of paper. You know, normal. And like you said, we have that new internal policy that you're using, so let's give it a year, something like that. Let's see what happens.
The way it's written there now, or
With the lines out. With this warnings, you know. where it's got-
removing the warning.
Yeah, remove the warnings, I think, and let's see what happens. I mean, if we get one a
We
year,
leave,
then it's, we're doing our job right.
we leave staff with the discretion to pull it.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a simple question as I listen to this? So when you say the word discretion, it's like discretion, right? But in the case of a renter who has a campfire past 11 o'clock at night, the neighbor who doesn't like the neighbor who owns that house calls and says, here's a picture, here's a clock, they're out at midnight. We verify that the people say, yeah, we didn't know we had to be done by 11. They're the renters. You're going to pull that. The way I read it, it says that's gone for a year.
Could be, but that's where they have discretion.
So that's, I mean, as a lawyer, that's where I go, now you're getting iffy, because I may give one person the discretion of saying, that's not a fine. I don't like this guy. I'm going to yank it. So my question might be,
We'll never get around.
Give
that.
everybody
We'll
the
never
one.
get around that.
I know, but what if you said, give everybody one warning? Because then you could go to the renter or the owner and say, hey, by the way, you got a neighbor here who's out to get you. They were out past midnight. So that owner might go, let's put a sign out by the fire pit that says, this has to be down by 11 or you pay double, you know, or something like that. Otherwise,
That's where their discretion is. If it's a renter, it's different than if it's the owner. If the owner's blatantly letting 12
Yeah.
people stay at a 3-person place, which is on the internet right now.
I
They're
just-
doing the violation.
I just know how it is phone calls
Let's
eventually
take
work their
that.
way up to me and they go, this person was said, hey, don't do it again. They yanked my life.
But I can drive out here. I can go 38 and get a ticket. And the next day I can go 55 and the next cop goes, well, yeah, you're gonna slow down. I
You're
mean,
the
so how?
decision
how we
makers. I'm
gonna
just
do it?
throwing it out there
I
and
mean,
say,
we'll never get around that. I mean, as soon as we say there's discretion, it's open. I mean, it's, if you piss me off and I came on your lot, I'd double the fine.
so you just said in a meeting here
Yeah,
that we're gonna let these guys decide who they whack.
that's why we trust them.
Okay.
At their job. That's why we hire police and trust them at their job, do we not? Clamp Falls Legal will tell us.
You said you were asking a simple question.
I wanna get back to the adult entertainment.
Yeah.
But I think it also comes back down to is this, at the discretion side of thing, is it the first time they've been called to this property for a campfire at 11:30? Or is it the fourth time they've been called in the last
Yeah.
month? Or,
Exactly what's in that enforcement
Yeah.
procedure
Yeah.
that you guys have. And
You know.
So, and I mean, that's what we're gonna use for all of our complaints, so it has there, and that repeated offenses moves it up higher on the priority list, and it's gonna move it towards that. So.
Good.
well, no, I was just gonna ask Doug.
Well, it's
Go
a
ahead.
follow-up. Vince, in months, years ago, could be years, we had come up with a system where we were gonna rate the violations.
Yep.
1, 2, and 3. And then Malia said, well, that's hard to do because if we were thinking a parking violation isn't as high as another. Well, she said a parking violation is as high because you're stopping all the emergency vehicles. So how do you?
How do you rate which?
She was saying you really have a problem rating. That's
Well,
all.
how many
Just going back
scenarios,
to-
how many violations can there be? Did they light fireworks? Did they fish off your dock and that one? Did they do this with a boat? Did they not? Like you said, if they parked across the road and didn't know is somebody else's land. I mean, how many
I can tell you that
violations?
all of the permits that we've revoked in the last year, and that all of the owners, and that admittedly knew that they were violating their conditions.
Yeah. Most of them were for too many people,
Really?
weren't it? Most of it were not for too many people. See, so it
Too
is,
many
it is the owner.
bedrooms, not enough septic, yeah.
So just a question
Before
for,
that, and then I can tell you down on Swiftness Point and that on the Apple River, we had bad renters and we had a neighbor that would paddle every single time. And we took and we went that one 4 or 5 times. Before we revoked. So.
Was it something different every time? For the same?
And that, yeah, just everything in that. So loud noise, passive quiet hours, parking on a private drive. And that they went to the town of Lincoln and that with Jay and them down there. Finally, and that we got on board with the town of Lincoln and it was done. Multiple violations.
They didn't really care for each other.
No, yeah, it
Dispute over
was
the
a
property
neighborly
line.
dispute and we knew it was a neighborly dispute. And we're like, we're not gonna get into your dispute, but then finally there was enough of them. Like, no, you're not running a good business, so.
so just a question for you, Doug. I mean, are you okay with the 12 months? That was just a number that I picked off the top of my head. I mean,
Well, as I read it and brought it up a minute ago, I think it's harsh. I mean,
yeah, I'm not opposed to a different number. Like I say, it was a number.
didn't have problems with the 3 months, then the 6 months, because it wakes them up. It didn't, the one that I know of on Ward Lake, that was a big deal. 3 months, 6 months, because since then, group renters have been behaving. I know both neighbors. One's not happy with it, but the other one says, Dave, what are you gonna do? I guess when I read that, it just seems like a pretty big cutoff.
I'd go 15.
He's just trying to get the average back to 12 again.
And Jeff, there's some people that they don't care. It could be a year.
But the other permits, and other permits are 12 months. I think we should try and leave it like that way. see if we get a lot. I mean, like you said, most of them, the people know it, so they're doing it.
And I think if,
Yeah.
as
And that-
long as
and
they
it'd be one
have the
season.
discretion and we're not saying instantly because there's the picture at 11:01, the fire was still going.
Yeah.
You know,
And there could be a difference in a clock. Aaron's was fast. So, you know, I mean, it could be that difference. That 20 minutes to the matter.
Boom, mine's 10 o'clock,
Just
day of
saying.
year round. Hit it with a hammer.
You don't have to.
All right. So what do we do? Let's,
They could never write an ordinance for it, but I never figured that we would have
Yeah.
a Red Bull half pipe
Yeah.
on north end of Deer Lake.
Yeah.
Last one, so.
I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm down there,
Tour swimming.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm down there watching it at night while they had all the spotlights and the half pipe, and then they were making snow too. It was unbelievable.
yeah, 10 feet off the water.
Yeah.
One more comment.
go ahead.
Just for Jason, and I sound like I'm in favor of first run house. I'm not necessarily. It just comes out if you have questions.
Yeah.
But can we do that with that new?
Yep.
The state.
Yep, that's all about conditional use. So I mean, we're talking about conditional use. It could be a vehicle, and then it could be a salvage yard, it could be an auto body garage, you know. I mean, it's any of those.
Any of those.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, we're not categorizing short-term rentals any different than any permitted or conditional. use. So,
Easier to keep it on the same.
Oh, yeah, but I just meant we have that other paper that says it has.
That short-term rental stuff, yeah, that it's into that, yeah, okay. Ah. Claire, if you'd went faster, we'd have missed that page. So you're going too slow.
So, we okay with everything here and that for adult entertainment, adult establishments, and that, non-metallic mining stuff for the borrow pits. The Ag 200, Ag 105, and that the 6 chickens in an R1 classification. And then, I mean, are we okay? Because right now, I think that if you are, that this ordinance is done, so this is our shoreline and our comp. We don't have any other amendments to it. Tomorrow, we're going down to our West Central Zoning Administrators meeting in Eau Claire. We've got several DNR staff that are gonna be presenting. One of them is Michael Wenholz, our statewide shoreline policy coordinator. One of the things that I asked him to do is give us an update on their model ordinance, because the DNR staff has been working on a new model ordinance. So I want to see what kind of changes they're gonna have. For that, hopefully I'll find out tomorrow. So maybe I can give you an update on the 21st if we have anything. I don't think they're gonna roll that model ordinance out until 2023, just because they want to say it's an updated 2023 version. But anyway, I don't think there's anything of substance. It's just that they're trying to provide clarity and easier readability for the public. So that's what I've been told.
I got a couple of questions about,
no, go ahead.
so under the mining part, is that truly just taking what's there, or can you, like if you wanted to build a half-mile long driveway and you had crushed gravel, can you do that in your pit that is permitted there? I don't care, I'm just asking,
Good question.
you know, because there's things that you didn't think would ever happen, and if we're doing it,
It's a good question. Right now, in that, if it's 1 acre, less than 1 year, that.
but it would have to be used on that property.
It would not be able to take and be used as a landfill. Like, we've had problems with that because we've got landfill defined as in the ordinance as bringing materials from outside and to bury on the site. You know, but yes, and that crushing would be allowed right now, or that would be a condition we would need to add if we wanted to prohibit that.
And I don't care, I'm just asking
Can't be for
because
sale,
And that, yeah,
because then it's a business.
hypothetically, you can stockpile it for a year and turn around and sell it after you close it.
don't, and that, because then that's gonna fall underneath our non-metallic mining ordinance. And so any hauling of the material off-site, and that is gonna take and fall into that ordinance, even if they're not in the facility ordinance. So, yep, so that is protected.
Okay, I just come to mind, and then, in the spot where you had, talking about retaining walls,
Yes.
everything that you talked about was just stacked, you know, timbers, rock,
Links,
whatever.
steel, Yep.
What about like straight poured concrete or anything for a retaining wall? Is there any restriction on that? Should that be added? Just throwing it out there.
that's considered a structure though, isn't
It would be considered a
So it would
structure and a
be a-
retaining wall, but I can do poured concrete, you know, or a concrete wall, so, yep. Good point, that was an oversight.
when that grandfather dies, boy, it's gonna be a mess. Around here, isn't it? You
Good
know,
one.
he lives forever. Okay,
So how late into 2023 do you think they're gonna bring their model ordinance out?
Yeah.
Well, I know. Ask a stupid question.
That's a hard question.
What I've heard in that there won't be any county board meeting, and that in February. That's still being talked about, but if we don't have a meeting in February, I'd kind of like to package a lot of these ordinances and try to get them on the Mark County board. You know, so maybe you have.
building season again, yeah.
I think this is important enough. We should just vote to put it on the February county board meeting.
If they're all ready. I mean, if they only come just for zoning, it would be worth it. We'd get something done.
Oh, you're laughing.
He's laughing.
You know, Brad,
Wise
a
guy.
few years ago that we had that discussion. And some of them wanted to have February off to go on vacation. We have work to do.
Yeah,
So we
We
started
had one.
having February.
Yes, we did.
yeah.
We're trying to go back now to have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to go on vacation in March through January. So
you got all kinds of.
we could just have a February meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, no, I've been told right after the first year that we're supposed to have the model ordinance, like I said, I'll find out more tomorrow.
And that was my only question. If the model ordinance came out, we could, if it comes out before we pass this, it could get whatever updates we needed to this could just be written into
I
this.
want to kind of put this on the back burner is what I'm saying,
Yep.
until I find out what those changes are gonna be, so we don't have to open it back up.
Yeah, and you turn around and do it again a month
I
later.
shouldn't say we have to. There's nothing in the model ordinance that is gonna be required that I know of and that to be updated, it's just suggestions. So,
Yeah, but if we could be right from the start, that'd give us a year at least.
Well, usually their suggestions means the next time they look at it, you have to do it. So they just give you that 6 months. Now we
Yeah,
suggested
there's a-
you do it, now you have to. do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they did the last time I did see mine. Because then they sent us that 6-page deal of 30-some things we had to change.
well, they do carry, some weight because our shoreline ordinance has to be approved by the DNR.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember the last 215, when they gave us a 2-page deal, we had to go back to the whole thing, because they just,
right.
it was suggested the first time, the next time they said, no, here's what you will change. So you might as well change it. Yeah. You got,
They've been working on it since September, so hopefully they've got. something
Sure.
done.
okay, which,
Okay, now we're on to the town of St. Croix Falls then, underneath, Division C. Town of St. Croix Falls, held a planning commission meeting. And we've actually had 2 different readings on the proposed text. One of the readings was on October 19th, November 9th. And it was adopted by the county or the town board. And that on November 16th, 2022, it's an amendment to their zoning ordinance number 1. It's underneath their general zoning agricultural district. And it has to do with adding a special exception. And the special exception use that they added was racetrack or similar uses, provided however, no racetracks or similar uses will be permitted on any parcel unless a racetrack was previously located on that parcel. So it sounds like they had a specific property in mind, and I'm sure it's the racetrack on 160th Avenue. between,
That's exactly.
Securia and Highway 7.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So with that, we just need recommendation to move that forward to the full county board.
I'll send it to the county board with recommendation.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Sharon seconded? Tracy
Oh,
seconded.
oh.
Thank you. All those in favor then say aye. Opposed?
It's up to you.
Really, because it's not really.
Well,
not
it's not
really-
the ordinance update, it'd be fine. So-
On this one.
AD,
Which one?
Okay,
What do you want?
I'm gonna hand it out.
that's all right. I'll just send.
Denied. Is there? oh. There's
Okay.
3 pages, I'm like, geez.
We're gonna build a playground.
Yeah, not down that way.
Denied.
In the eggplant.
Get out of here.
It's just a fun background.
Oh, no, I know, that was just a spare, you can send it that way, or,
Okay.
There's no red lines or nothing on this. What's
No.
wrong?
no, that, well,
Everything.
Go ahead.
this would be new, it's probably got the wrong name on it, you gotta go with what you're thinking of yesterday. So it's a way to try to get back to farmland preservation without having to be in farmland preservation and, you know, jump through the hoops.
Oh, sure.
You know, it would be limited to, you know, locking into ag land, no housing on it, you know, sure, you could build a shed on it, but if as an owner, you decided to put your property in this, this is it, this is all you could do. That would be the extent of it, you couldn't build a house on it, it'd have to be. I think, does it say somewhere, Jason, it's 20 acres or more, right? That for the owner operator, that would be on the farm site itself, not on a,
Okay.
you know, not on a.
Yeah, it wouldn't be industrial though, would it?
Well, that was, like I said, the name is wrong, but that was the word I had yesterday when I called Jason and said, what do you think of this idea? So, you know, because I'm sure we can't call it farmland preservation.
Farmland preservation is highly regulated by that cap.
Yeah,
oh, God,
Chapter
yes.
91 and 93.
Yeah.
And so I think what Brad is trying to do is he's trying to create a similar district that provides or some of those protections in that for our agricultural land. Knowing that, you know, the producer is not going to be eligible for any tax credit, but currently we have no farmland preservation zoning that actually qualifies for the tax credit. We've got a little bit of AEA area down in Alden, and that qualifies. But basically, the people that are in farmland preservation right now, there's some up in McKinley, probably 15% of the town or so. Most of those people are keeping their land in farmland preservation because they want their heirs to not be able to subdivide the land and to be able to keep the land in the family. So that's kind of what they're doing. That's kind of what this district would be too. And that the 20-acre provision and that I had it kind of in there yesterday, but I got rid of that when we got rid of E this morning.
Okay.
And then, but if you were in this zoning classification and that there would be no subdivision, you'd have to take and rezone. And that the property in order to take and do a subdivision. So.
It keeps you from, I'll say, splitting it up there again, not that you couldn't rezone. You know, but you would then have to do that. The hope would be like, well, there again, picking on farmland preservation. It's a way for somebody to put 40 acres or is it 4,000 acres in it? And you know that there's not going to be a subdivision built on it, you know, there's not going to be houses built on it, you know, and just a way to.
But how would they do that? How do you restrict somebody from not dividing? I mean, if they sell it,
But
it
you would,
comes out. Or
you would have to put it in.
You'd have to put it in. So it'd be on your deed. Yeah, the
And
deed.
then-
No,
this
I
is-
mean, it would be a zoning district, so it would,
Yeah,
it
zoning
would go to an A4 zoning district. And it would say, here's the restrictions on it.
So anytime you have a substantial
So you'd have to
revision.
zone it out to do any divisions.
And
Okay.
that's, anytime you have a substantial revision or add a zoning district in a zoning ordinance, that automatically triggers that's a comprehensive rewrite of the ordinance, okay? So what we would have to do is if the committee wanted to add this provision and that to the ordinance, and that we would have to reach out to the towns, say, hey, we've got a new zoning classification, and allow them the opportunity to amend their maps and provide any feedback on this zoning ordinance. And if they do, fine. If they don't, you know, but those map amendments then would just be incorporated with the new text and passed on to the county board.
So the towns would determine if a piece of property would fall into this category.
Actually, it'd start, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
what St. Croix Falls forgot to do their rezone. They're out.
The farmland preservation district is very tied up. And that is very specific. We have to be certified, so our ordinance is certified for farmland preservation. But in order to qualify for the tax credits of farmland preservation, 80% of all the land within a municipality has to be zoned farmland preservation. And McKinley had the most back in 2015 when we did the comprehensive amendment, and they only had 38%. And we were even going into the shoreland areas, we had farmland preservation along all of our shoreland areas. If there was just a small pond where there wasn't houses and stuff, forest lands were in there, everything that we could. Very difficult to hit the 80% threshold.
And that's the other issue is there's no way to get there. I could want to put my land in farmland preservation, but when our highest county was at 38%,
Yeah.
they weren't even halfway there.
Every half almost looked down. You know, that was the color of farmland preservation. Is
Well, back when it was
exclusive
open.
ag back then.
Exclusive ag, you know, because all that had that dropped out because it couldn't do anything. So that's
So
all.
what is this going to do though? Because if I wanted to change, if I put all of my land into this, but 10 years down the road, I wanted to sell a chunk of it, you can just get a rezone and pull it out of there. So what is this actually going to do except for giving the townships more work to do and the county more work to do to put it into it? And I'm not against it, I'm just asking.
No, well, I think it just gives the landowner that other option of saying, here it is, I don't want to sell any, I want to keep it in ag land. Like I say, it's just trying to, can I say, piggyback off of farm preservation without having to do it and really without even the ability to do it, because there again, I can own 60% of the land in the town, but if I can't get another 20% to do it, I can't even do it. So I don't think it's any different than being zoned egg 20 or egg 10 or egg 5. I mean, I can change it any day.
So here's back to just our general zoning conversation when we're having these rezones brought for you at that, and that what Supervisor Olson was trying to explain to me yesterday was also to take and notify people when they move into an area that, hey, I am moving into a A4 district or an ag district, that people are going to be spreading manure. They're going to have, maybe a large farm or large animals. They're going to be having noise at all times of the day. They're going to be working nights and weekends, that kind of stuff. So then, when the county does comprehensive plan amendment, or if we're looking at a rezone and we look at the surrounding uses, a residential rezone, if somebody wanted to go to R1 and it's all surrounded by this A4 district, and that now maybe we're not, similar and compatible with our surrounding land use. So at that point, I mean, this could, like any zoning district, give teeth in that to the committee and to the towns on, hey, that's not a compatible use, you're gonna move that residential subdivision in there with 30 houses and it's surrounded by Sam Hill's farm. And we know that it's just gonna have a bunch of complaints that then they're gonna want us to have a nuisance ordinance for or something like that to try to shut Sam Hill down.
Yeah, and even, there again, from the ag side, I mean, it's like, we all know half our soybeans get combined after dark at night. That's the way it is. And so it takes care of that. It's like saying to somebody who owns it, here's what they're going to do. They're zoned ag 4. Combine's gonna be running at 11 o'clock at night. The dust is, you're probably not gonna, on the right day, you're not gonna see across the road because of the dust.
I know, I'm totally in favor. I like how Jason just explained it for that.
Yeah.
They kept compatible use and stuff. I think that's the huge part in selling it to the township.
And it doesn't matter. You could, like I say, you could have 4,000 acres or 40 acres and say, hey, I want to be in this, and there again, so I went back to farm preservation. The original draft, allowed 2 houses, kind of like 820 in a way. And I talked to Jason this morning early and I was like, I don't want any houses built on anything that's in it. I mean, if you want to build a house where you're in A4, take it back out, put it in egg 20, put it in egg 10. But if you go into this, even though you're not locked into it, you're saying, I want this to be agriculture, productive agriculture land. That could be 40 acres of productive agriculture forest.
No, I like it. I just wanted some clarity as to what.
So the landowners have a say in it. And they would go to their towns and say, I want to move my property for.
Hopefully, so like any zoning map amendment, you know, and that it comes down to the town. And that, and having them, you know, be supportive of it, but hopefully they would maybe reach out to some of their, you know, producers in their town.
Yeah.
When we have to give them notice of this amendment, and then they would come to the table and
Yeah.
say, yes, here's all my parcels that I want. And I don't foresee that a lot of people are gonna jump at it.
Yeah.
But, you know, our existing farmland preservation folks might, you know. so.
I think you'd be surprised.
For sure. Just going back to what Justin said. I'm not against it. I don't care one way or the other, but I'm just saying, why would, if we ever need to do this, you've got to. No, just it's that simple. You're just telling them this is what I want. When
Yeah.
I don't see the gain in anything different than we have now.
But I think the difference comes in is that we're saying, here's what's gonna, here's what happens on it. And to me, at least from my point of view, the biggest advantage is now, when you come in and buy 20 acres next to Ag 4, you know exactly what you're buying next to. You maybe don't, but that's not my fault. There's the landowner. They're zoned as A4 and we're gonna do all of these things. And that's what happens here. It isn't any necessarily any difference than it is, but it's letting the new owner, the potential house, whatever, say, here's what's gonna happen on this field, and it don't matter if the field is, or no different if somebody put 40 acres of woods in and somebody built a house next to it, and all of a sudden they were mad because the loggers were in, you know, making noise or running at night, or, you know, log jammers, you know, the log trucks were in there. It's like, well, that's what it was, you know, it was in that zoning district.
So it's a
What,
dump truck
I'm
on
just,
me.
what is the advantage? If I put my land in this, what is the advantage, except that I can have burial sites? Why is that in there? We got burial sites here and I thought, like,
We had that, I'm gonna let Jason handle that one, because we had that discussion this morning.
whoa,
So 5969 is our general county shoreline, or not shoreline, comprehensive zoning stuff, okay? I think it's A through H or whatever, it talks about all the things that our zoning ordinance can regulate. Setbacks, impervious surface, height of buildings, land uses, of course, goes on down the list. And the last one is burial sites according to chapter 157.7. And what that is that's private burial sites. And that for it, that is in our Ag 20, Ag 10 zoning classifications as well as a conditional use permit. They're regulated by the Wisconsin Historical Society. I left it in there for my draft when I provided Supervisor Olson. Because a lot of times, you know, farmers, if they're that entitled to their land or enriched in their land and that, they might want to be buried on their land. And so that's
why it's there. Yeah, okay. So what's the pros of going to this? Why, if, say I'm gonna come up there and buy 100 acres in Plant Fall. It's already a, and or whatever, what do I gain by changing it to this?
So I think what the way Jason explained it, so if you come up and bought that 100 acres, you were gonna build a house or you're gonna subdivide it. They'd look at what the surrounding compatible uses are, and if it's all Ag 4, your subdivision may not get permitted in that area because it's not a compatible land use.
so this gives a town. Not because you guys pretty much generally go with the
Town
town.
has to.
And that, but this gives the town another tool for that to say, and that, okay, residential Ag 5, well, residential and agricultural. You know, Ag 10, pretty much agricultural, 10-acre densities, you know. And that this here is like most restrictive that would say, hey, you know, it's all surrounded by, you know, a big farm field, you know, residential neighborhood, you know, it really isn't good. So it would give them a tool in the toolbox.
If I got a square section, and let's say I own all but 40 acres. You know, and that 40 acres has got a driveway right to the center, the 40 is right in the center. But it's owned by you, that 40 acres in the center, and now you're gonna sell it to Tracy. She's gonna come in and build $1 million house on it. Maybe she doesn't want to do that on 600 acres that surround her is an open field that's zoned ag 4. Because today, if it's zoned ag 5, 10, or 20, I've got 100 different things I can do on it. That could be done on that.
On that property.
On that
adjacent to it.
600
Yeah.
acres. We're here, agriculture is all that's gonna be done on that 600 acres around Tracy's new $1 million house, but what would she care for?
I guess I, going back to what Dave said, I just beat on it. What does it do for us? Because she wants to build that house. And we can go back to Highway 8 North. Lamp Falls isn't gonna get a subdivision. It's like Bone Lake isn't gonna get one.
Well, Bone Lake might.
Well, maybe a bigger chance, but you know, it's like if you die tomorrow, then that whole section goes back to everybody's gonna buy off.
But then they would, yeah, right, they would, but maybe it doesn't matter in Clam Falls and Bowen Lake where nobody moves to, for the most part. My point with all of this is maybe it matters somewhere in Alden, you know, but it's the town, at the end of the day, it's the town's choice. You know,
It's the buyer and the
Yeah,
homeowner, and it changed the zone.
yeah, and I got an email yesterday that at the very end of it said, good reason for Clam Falls to get back in county zoning.
So my question is, just from the township. Would this not, instead of, okay, so we have 5, 10, 20 already. Could we not take these things, instead of creating a new district, if you will? Could you not take them and put them in the appropriate zoning we have now? So you're not creating the standalone.
But
You
they
know what
are,
I'm saying? Because you could put it in there, if you are not gonna allow that in 5, you're not gonna allow it in 10, and you're not gonna allow it in 20. Put it in there as such, because I just think this is gonna be a mass confusion for, I mean, I don't want somebody coming into my office saying, okay, now that you got this 4 here, I wanna do. They're probably physically
think-
not gonna understand it.
Supervisor Olson just wants to be restricted. So, and if you read, it's the small text in there, it's a single farm residence. And an additional farm residence. That's very much like our farmland preservation. If you dial back 5 years, we've had many farmland preservation requests come through up in the town of McKinley and stuff, where somebody bought a piece of wooded ground and wants to build a cabin in it. Well, now that has to come through for a rezone and that through the town. It really gives you the town another zoning district.
but all of these are in every ag district that we have today. I can do every one of these in every ag district.
So again, back to Doug and Kim's, what are we gaining then? I mean, because there is gonna be a way around whatever anyway, you know what I'm saying?
There's way around everything. It's a matter of, do we want to try to not only protect agricultural land, and somebody who's going to put their land in this is going to do it because they want to protect it for agriculture. And there again, that could be row crops, or it could be, I own 500 acres of woodland, you know, and I want to make sure it stays there. It just gives me another option, and it also gives that incoming person from out of the area the knowledge that here's what happens around my farm, because, or around the land that I've bought, because in ag 10, 5, 10, or 20 today, like I said, there's 100 uses. You know, it's like looking at the general business. What can you have? We rezoned to general business. The list is 40 long or 50 long of what you can do in that general business. My only goal here is to restrict it to, if I as a landowner want to go into whatever this A4 would be called, is that that's what it's going to stay. Can I pull it out? I absolutely can. I think it just gives more flexibility all the way around for it. There again, anybody buying land next to it knows that, hey, the fact that maybe it smells bad in the morning is probably because I bought next to A4. Not that it could on.
Well, you still can in 5, 10, and 20 too. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I just think
No matter what.
it gives the landowner a little more discretion to say, hey, I don't want any houses built on here, you know. I mean, we've got A20, A10. We done that to make smaller parcels, but I can come in and just rezone to residential ag 1 if I want to put 20 houses on it. So do we just go back to residential ag and say you can have a house on every acre, because all of these things can be done in residential ag? You know, but we've given them the option of being in residential ag 1, 5, 10, or 20. To me, this is just another option of, and I'm sorry when I say this, Tracy, not necessarily giving the town the option, but giving the landowner the option of saying, hey, yeah, I don't, you know, I want to put it here. I want to protect my land as much as I can from development. And I think that's what this does.
So it's ag preservation without the tax break.
And the fact that you can do it.
That's not how I look at it. It's, you know, it's an alternative to agriculture enterprise areas or farmland preservation without the tax credit.
Without the tax break.
But it also gives assurances that those properties, at least long-term, without a rezone, will be in ag. And less likelihood of any flood zone.
Yeah.
Anything that's not compatible is not gonna be approved.
It's also more of an awareness thing, if I might, you know, because I look
It's,
at.
it's as much about awareness as it is anything else, because if I come in and say, here's the property you're gonna buy, and it's all zoned ag 10 around it. Now, here's the list of things that I can do in there. But when you would walk in and say, there it is, it's zoned ag 4, here's the only things they can do. This is it. One sheet of paper covers it all. That's what's gonna happen in the land around where I'm buying that piece of property.
Could this build capacity to reintroduce or re-energize or set the table for farmland preservation, you know, the DAC program? If
I
you
doubt
have
it,
enough?
because you're back to that again. You gotta have 80%. I mean,
Of a municipality.
of a municipality, you gotta
Like
have,
that conversation we had.
you gotta have, you know, how are you gonna get,
Well, maybe Alden.
Got out.
yeah,
Alden was under all that and had to get out because it couldn't.
right, but no different than
Maybe, yeah,
McKinley.
yeah, would lower the 80% someday. You know, too, maybe to help them out, which
Yeah,
would be good.
But I mean,
I think
that's,
that'd be the only way to do it, if they would lower it, to get it out, because you can't get it.
I think these farmland preservation programs,
Don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Generally,
it's,
there's some areas in the center.
you know, but it's pretty much dead in any somewhat urban or urban transition
Yeah.
county, you know, so.
Yeah,
But-
you just can't give it, yeah.
Again, Supervisor Olson contacted me yesterday morning, so I haven't really dove a lot into this, and I wanted more support from the committee as a whole before we spent massive amounts of staff time on this. But it could be something so simple as adding some language in there about how you rezone, or what kind of criteria needs to be met in order to rezone. So that the proposed rezone is better suited for a different use other than agriculture. Maybe there's a really hilly spot on the wooded lot, and maybe that's better for a house. So here's some criteria that you could insert into an A4 district if you wanted to make it, you know, tougher for somebody to rezone on it.
oh, what if, and maybe we can't do it legally, but what if we said in there that if you placed your land in ag 4, whatever the name turned out to be, you could only rezone it every 10 years. You know, but I mean, as far as really having, you know, getting back to a little more farmland preservation, if I want to put that land in, I know it's not coming out of ag use. And I'm not saying 10 is the right number. Is it 5? Is it 7? Is
Well,
it
then it's
10? Is it-
more, it's like in our subdivision, we have a conservancy. And that's a tough one to meet too, you know, where Mr. Nelson tried and wished he would, so, but I mean, but you have a conservancy subdivision was hard to do too. I mean, they're not easy, so maybe that would be something, this would be more of a conservancy. Well, you can't do that because then you can't farm it and do all the other stuff, but I mean, that's almost something
Yeah.
You could, I mean, and
That's kind of the name you want to put on it or something.
I mean, because there
The thing
again,
is that-
I'm fine with it being hard to get out, because there again, I'm looking for farmland preservation.
That's hard to get it out.
That's
Yeah.
hard to get it out, and yet there's no way, even if you want to be in farmland preservation, there's no way. There's no way to get there in the county today, really anywhere,
No.
80% of
So is there any other counties that have this?
Trying to protect your.
Just started on this. yesterday.
No.
I literally spent on that sheet there and that 45 minutes yesterday, maybe.
Is that
Max?
maybe something we wanna, before we like dive into this full bore, I mean, find out what if
Yes, I
somebody
think
else
so.
actually has this? I mean, I don't really know if I'm for it or if I'm really against it. I'm just seeing that there's a lot of gray here.
We're trailblazers.
Oh,
Your great t-shirt.
then it gets us in trouble. I just, you know what I'm saying? Cause I see a
Yeah.
lot of.
It's food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, it
It's a
didn't
start. We're
come
gonna
today
start
to say,
somewhere.
let's make a decision by any means, but I think like Jason said, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, to start a name with something other than J, maybe.
They did, Amy.
Yes, okay. Go ahead, Doug, yeah.
But it's, as Mr. Wood said, it's also about protecting open space. We're losing more of it all the time.
Yeah, but it's not. So I'm going back to what Jason said, and I can tell you why it's not. Is that he already spent 45 minutes. We're spending more time. Only, the ag district, but too much. I'm in this district now,
Yeah.
you know, with my property.
Right.
So I don't need a piece of paper to tell me I'm in it because my wife isn't gonna sell either. No. All I'm telling.
It's
is,
choice.
if the neighbor asks me or some guy says, what are you gonna do here? They all know what I'm gonna do. Nothing. You know, I mean, it's just that simple. Isn't it? I mean, even if somebody, the 40 in the middle of all my land isn't gonna change. It just, you're only making a piece of paper that says.
But that's all it is. That's all any of it is. So like I said, then we can just go back to R1 and say, it's RA1 and say everything is ag residential 1. I mean, because.
But it can change tomorrow if you decide to go to the board and get a zone change.
Right, but so can everything else.
Why should Jason spend all this time?
Well, the towns too, it's a complete rewrite, so all the towns are gonna have to be involved in.
Yeah, it was just an idea. I'm not saying it's.
We'll get to it a little bit more, but not a lot.
That's what I'm saying, if you can encompass some of this into the current. And have it mean the same thing, you know what I'm saying, so that. I don't know,
I know
it feels
what
like
you're
we're recreating the wheel, but yet,
The benefits.
I don't know.
are Really gonna be in that is if you put in rezoning criteria here, and that gives you more teeth over just a normal rezone. And that for both the town to use and you guys at the committee to use. Two, and that similar and compatible uses, and that when you're looking at a rezone. And that whether or not that's gonna be within the town. And three is. Maybe not so much in Bowen Lake and that, but you don't have to drive very far in south of 8. And they're building in fields all over. And they're building right in the middle of them, you know.
Yeah, I'm on the side.
If you're for it, you're for it. If you're against, you're against. I think that's the intent that he's trying to at least allow the property owners and a lot of it kind of comes back to that estate planning, you know, that when you have the farm and you want to keep the farm, you know, all together or intact, this would be another layer of burden, you know, for that. So.
Well, and you look down in Blackfoot Township, that subdivision that they're putting in right next to Turkey Farm. So it's, you know, if it was this, it may not have been able to get pushed through as easy because the surrounding compatibilities are not residential right next to Turkey Farm and a dairy
Well,
farm.
and to me, it doesn't even matter if it goes through.
It's
But if
the
all that
awareness.
land around wherever that you were talking about is, let's say most of that land was zoned ag 4. You built the house next to ag 4. And this is what it is. It isn't, there's 25 other uses this could turn into. This is what this use is. You know, I mean,
And that particular land and that,
And-
that he's talking about was a developer that came in, they bought 80 acres. And that they did 4 lots out of each 40, so they didn't have to do any major subdivision or anything. You know, they bought the land for about 3,500 an acre. And they've been selling it for 9,000 to 10,000 an acre, and I think they only got 1 lot left, so.
Okay.
So, yep. So, and that's just within the last 6 months.
but I think that's where this helps because it's never gonna happen in probably the entire districts that we covered. But it is gonna happen down where they live. And I can already hear my phone ringing when those people move into their house.
We already been through it in this one.
Yeah,
It's
but
the
I mean,
same thing.
I mean,
I think
the
it's
fact that
because now
I'm
they're there.
letting that land or that, in this case, even just the developer know that here it is, because, you know, he can go out and say, well, look at, you know, the land around you can be used in all of these districts now in an ag 10. Here's all the things that can be done here. When he's gonna show that new potential buyer, it's ag land. And that's what it's gonna be, and that's more than likely what it's gonna stay. You know,
Make your land more valuable if you're next to it. Because it would always be ag. If you want to build up your house next to one of these, it's always gonna be ag next
Well,
to
it
you.
isn't always gonna be, you have the
Well,
option,
pretty much,
you have the option to.
take it in or out anyway. But at least you know,
But if-
actually, if I was next to it, it'd be nice, because I know that field pretty much. Nobody wants to change it, so it's always, my view is always gonna be my view, you know, but then
Well, and.
right.
the guy next door.
And
And think
Be nice.
about, so what comes to my mind in that case, remember when we had the hearing about the Dollar General and Cushing?
Yeah,
And the lady talked about her view,
Yeah.
out across the field,
Yeah.
and now it's gonna be Dollar General or Dollars, whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do think it's a good thing, it's just, you know, the time element and that thing, putting it all together, because, you know, I think more awareness, as we get more removed from agriculture. I think it's a huge deal to try to protect what we have. You
And
know,
also inform the public. And to me, this is about information as much as it is what is it gonna be? Because, yeah, I mean, I get, you can take it out of the zoning district anytime you want to, but I can take anything out of a zoning district anytime that I want. You know, I mean, I can be in ag 20 and decide, hey, I want to build 4 houses on this land.
Couldn't be able to take anything out of any zoning district and go to any zoning district. It shouldn't be that.
it shouldn't be that easy, yeah.
It shouldn't be that easy, but it's, you know, it's, some of this probably comes back to, you know, educating our towns and that, and something I've kind of thought about here and there is maybe we're not doing a good enough job, you know, educating our town supervisors and that of these changes. You know, and that so that they know that they don't have to say yes to my neighbor, you know, and that you can say no and you can support it. So, but yeah.
All right,
Hmm.
that'll be on the next one. We're gonna beat it to death.
Oh.
We can beat that one
So
to
am I
death.
supposed to look around a
Maybe
little
just
bit?
look a little, not a lot.
And maybe come back with a little bit. more
Yes.
robust?
Yeah, let's just look at, that'd be something Dad Cap would change. That they reduce.
Yeah.
So it
Four
could
more
be called that.
ordinances to hit on, so I'm gonna run down through them quick, they're really just updates. The rural address ordinance, went before Public Safety, Public Works yesterday. They were supportive of the changes, we're gonna be holding a public hearing and that with them. I'm gonna work with Mo to get that set up. Part of that, ordinance that's been in place since 2019 is addressing boat landings, cemeteries, public parking areas. And so in my spare time here lately, and that we've been going through and we've created addresses for all boat landings. And these are access points even for new walk-ins, stuff like that. We also went through and addressed all the cemeteries in the county. And I've yet to do the public parking areas, but we're gonna be doing them as well. We did get approval from like the DNR as well. So these might be a DNR parking area, and that where somebody's back hunting, falls out of a tree, at least they can say, you know, I'm gonna use the race beds along County Road G, for example. There's like 5 or 6 different spots you can pull off on the south side of G, and that would be hunting in the race bed. So if I call 911, and then, yes, they should be able to trace my phone now that we got next generation 911. But at least then dispatch, once they trace that phone, can take and give the responders an actual address to know where they need to park to go in and get that guy out of there. So we're working on those, trying to get all of them done, trying to get our orders in. Those would be spring installs. Also in that ordinance, and Public Safety, Public Works Committee was pretty supportive of it, is our trails and putting addresses on our trails. So we've already done the Gandy Dancer, Stour, the Cattail, and the Sawmill. And we're gonna be working on the Ice Age. And how they did, or how Rod and Mo, and Mike decided to do that was at the intersections. So wherever that trail crosses a public street, and that there will be a fire number sign there. Of course, it'll be off from whatever street it's at. So that'll be at every crossing. So anyway, so there's 69 signs for those trails, and those were ordered yesterday.
That includes the Jack Pine.
Oh, yeah, and the Jack Pine Loop, and that the new one up in Sterling, same thing. So
Rather do
So the sign-
markers.
Where does the sign money come from? For all these?
sign money,
Part,
and we were under on our line item still, and then the permit fees have went above and beyond what was budgeted, so there's some extra money. For some
Okay.
signs.
So you said Stour, Jack Pine,
Stour, Jack Pine, Gandy, Cattail, Sawmill, and then have to do Ice Age yet.
They're gonna be right at the intersection of the road.
But I want to reach out to the Ice Age folks too and make sure that they understand what's going on.
Every
Number
town
you
road that
north,
intersects
south,
the Gandy
east, west,
asphalt will have a fire sign there. So
when it crosses the road, you put it, Jason, so how did you decide if you put it on the north side, south side of a road where it crosses?
So basically started and that, like we do all our addressing. So if it was a primary, a north-south trail, like the Gandy, started at the south side because all of our numbers going on north-south roads are that way. And that when we started on, the Sawmill, same thing. That's another north-south trail. You know, the other one started at the left and went right.
It doesn't really matter. It's only gonna be a one off.
Anyway, so yeah, so there'll be a sign there at every one. I know like Sawyer County and that they've got them every quarter mile going down their main corridor trails. But we can always add, I mean, if this isn't sufficient. Also, we're gonna work with the Parks Department, for every kiosk location. I'll be honest with you, I haven't been down any of our trails really to speak of much. But we also want to assign an address right by every map kiosk, and then so that people can take and.
Will it be all red too then, not different, like the trails blue or green, brown,
They're gonna be all red.
like Sawyer County is blue.
Yep. They're gonna be all physical property addresses.
Okay.
Yep.
So just on main roads, then you're putting them, I mean, County Road W, O. Whatever that, my only question.
And
is
every
you go-
town road.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so, because.
But not,
I mean,
not,
the
not
trails
if
will-
the Ice Age trail hits a logging, or,
Right. No.
just a
Public road.
Dinger Lake Road, I'll say, because you called me about the
Yeah.
boat landing on Dinger Lake there, so, but that's not gonna have on that road because it's not, I mean, it's.
The idea or the thought, I think, in that with all of us when we were talking is, you know, most of our town roads are on the mile. You know, and that, so I mean, if you're halfway in between, yeah, the trail might be going at an angle, but it's roughly in that mile to mile at this time. So if you're halfway there, you got it.
I know up there too, they have the little signs at the kiosk is with the GPS and stuff. Latitude numbers are on the kiosks. Sawyer County, because then the guys can stop and punch them in. But that should be on a kiosk, then, shouldn't it?
we haven't talked about that. But,
Oh, up there, because we drive around deer hunting and stuff, you can just punch that in, longitude, latitude, and it shows you where you're at.
You're supposed to be in the woods for deer hunting.
Is that the adult entertainment?
And it's that. Lips, yeah, on my way.
That's what he's looking for.
Exactly.
That's what he-
That'll be it.
I guess if you
And it's right on the front
disseminate
door.
throughout the clubs, you know, and that for the people that are using these trails, you know, and that if we assign one on each road, and that then they're gonna need to help dispatch with knowing if, hey, I'm north or I'm south, you know, of that road or that address. That would be the only other thing is to try to give some direction, you know, and that for anybody responding, so.
Those are nice and clear now. You
So
can
we're-
see from miles.
Uh,
Mel, you can see
No,
from
that because that address is gonna be specific and it's gonna lock in a gridded point in the county right there. That's where that person is.
So going north and south, you have to know what side of that sign you're on, if you're on the Gandy or you're on the left. And you're, so
So
you're,
my address is, 1741 210th Avenue. Okay, I'm in an emergency. I'm not from Polk County. I have no idea where I am. I'm gonna go over that. I'm gonna see that sign. I'm gonna call it in. And then hopefully they know their directions enough and that, or they'll stay at that sign, you know, and that until the responders get there to take them to where they're.
It'll be within a mile.
okay, can I ask another question?
One more.
Okay, so on the Facebook page, if I put this on a Facebook page, on our Stoneville Facebook page or our webpage. When we put this on there, there'll be fire numbers on our trails, on our state trails, saying that where you're located, if there's an emergency, you go by that fire number. So is that good enough for the county?
Once they're up, you can put them
Here's the bad
on your new
thing.
map. You can put them every mile.
We're not gonna have a map this year, so we'll wait until next year maybe for a new
Yeah.
map.
Right.
So that's something we'd have to know.
And we'll be able to give you a map and that for those address points along the trail and that, but yeah, we're ordering the signs now. But we're probably not gonna see the signs until spring, so they're not gonna get installed until next summer. This is a 2023 season.
And we also heard about the signs being held up a little bit because of demand. Yeah, whatever.
We've got orders in since August that we haven't received.
Us too, so we're in the same boat.
But with that next gen 911, the person shouldn't have to remember where they're at. You know, because if it's a critical situation, they're not gonna know where the hell they are.
Yeah, they'll be in panic mode.
So the next gen 911, I mean, that's all coming together really nice.
So I'm halfway through and that between those markers, you know, and that dispatch, if they can locate that cell phone that's making that call, we'll be able to tell the responder, you know, which one is the closest one to get to that trail. And then they can say, here you go, here's the address you go, and when you get there, you gotta take a left or you gotta go south on the Gandy Dancer Trail. You know,
We'll use the one between Clear Lake and Clayton. You know, that person may know they're between Clear Lake and Clayton, but they may not know if they're closer to Clear Lake, or they may not know if they're closer to Clayton, so having that. is a big deal.
Well, anyway, so that's what we're working on there. Otherwise that ordinance is ready to go. There's a lot of red text in that, just not to catch you guys off guard when it gets on the county board agenda. There's nothing really of substance change. Remember our addressing ordinance came out in 2019. We were trying to hold off as long as we could in that because Next Generation was coming out with their standard protocol. That came out in 2020 and Brad, our GIS coordinator, he championed that ordinance and he wanted to take and make sure that our text was the same, that it matched, because we used plot and that or a parcel and the NG 911 code, and that was real property. So there's all kinds of just little changes like that, just changing terms, but very little substance changes. We did add about the trails with the public road crossing. Floodplain ordinance, submitted that to the DNR middle of November, around November 18th. I took and I talked to the DNR official that was gonna be reviewing our ordinance last week. They were supposed to give us comments that same day. That was like last Wednesday or Thursday. Haven't seen anything yet, but I expect it soon. I'd expect some minor amendments to that as well. Our Polk ordinance, we did receive our comments back from DSPS on Monday. I actually talked with Katie Petzel, our wastewater specialist, yesterday about the amendments, went through and changed the the ones that she wanted. There's really no substantial changes. I do have a completed version. I can include that in the packet for your next meeting if you want. I don't think it's worth going line by line. I think the biggest change that we did is we defined what a short-term rental or tourist rooming house is in that ordinance, which I copied and pasted from one of our other ordinances into there. So, otherwise, everything else was just adding like and / or and just punctuation and little stuff. So,
I ask one question
Yes.
again, back to the, was Cat Hill on that list?
it goes on.
Okay,
Yep.
that's the one. I
Yep.
missed.
So it should have all of our trails, and the only one that we haven't done yet is ice. I want to reach out to the Ice Age folks. They're on the same. We did, last week, receive confirmation in that, we have been delegated agent status for boats. So that is, moving along. One of the things in that we have to do with that is, meet with Katie in our office and we can do a little plan review training. And then also that we're gonna be holding, kind of our own continuing education training for our installers, designers, and everything here at the county. It's gonna be March 14th. I am gonna be applying for, and I'm sure that we'll obtain, continuing ed credits, so that any installer that has a license that they need continuing ed. And so we should be able to get at least 3 continuing ed credits for that, training. So looking at holding that from 9 to noon. And that continuing ed class, and that once approved for credits is good for 5 years. And then the last one that I kind of briefly showed last time, is renewable energy ordinance. I spent a lot of time on that on Friday. And it is still just as big a mess, if not more, than the last time I showed it to you. But it's coming forward, and at least I kind of had to go in and, not kind of, I had to go in and research the Public Service Commission Administrative Code, which is mainly chapter 128 for wind. And then also had to go into the statutes 66.0401 and 0.0403, which is solar. And kind of got myself up to speed on those. And basically putting that information now into the ordinance. I do have all the information in there, but now I'm kind of generating provisions based off of those statute criteria. So it's pretty close, but the formatting is terrible yet. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. Maybe on the 21st, I can get you a rough draft. So
The FEMA one. That's today at 1:30 to 2:30.
So we're having the kickoff meeting in that for that updated FEMA mapping. And that's supposed to be going on today, 1:30 to 2:30. It's with DNR, FEMA staff and that, or floodplain staff. Mike Rodney, our engineer for our area here, will be involved. I think there's even a FEMA person that'll be there. It's all online. And then I know Bob and McMahon is gonna try to make it, and our GIS Brad is gonna be there, so Steve Geiger, so yeah, and they are wanting more information on our new LiDAR and that presentation. So anyway, which is hopefully gonna be delivered next year at some point. But it doesn't sound like the main FEMA kickoff, or they really start getting into their mapping and their analysis won't start until 2024. In other
Our
words,
LiDAR comes this coming year, 2023, doesn't it?
Correct.
We get
so in
it
other words, in that our LiDAR is gonna be just in perfect timing in that. for them to
in
start
front of
doing
them. Yeah, okay.
Any questions?
That's all. That isn't so bad. It's
Actually, it's winding down. I mean, and that we got Brad's new zoning A4 thing, and we've got that renewable energy ordinance, and that's basically.
Basically,
Otherwise, I'm waiting on DNR on the floodplain, and the other ones are ready to roll.
and the other ones are ready. Okay. All right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
So we have number 9, wildlife. Is he coming?
I don't see Cody.
I don't know. We set prices. I got last year's.
$2.18.
Not over it. The other guys last year, I haven't had. That one.
You know, he was introduced by a predecessor here a couple of months ago.
I think he forgot. When does this have to be set by? We might have to have them at the next.
Isn't
meeting.
it January first?
Yeah,
For what?
January first.
well, that's when.
That's what they do it because it's February on our worksheet when we.
I will
approve it.
call him. In January,
Yes. We set our own.
no, it's February does the
February.
the
does
claims,
the
yeah, so
claims.
we got some time, I'll call Cody.
Here's what we did last year.
He says if.
Yeah, but last year isn't relevant, Kim.
Years, it's gotta be relevant.
It's not relevant to the
All
pricing
claims,
this year.
all claims get canceled. They didn't show up.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Cancel.
there you go. That would go over well. I didn't, yeah. how many
Denied.
claims? Ooh, denied, yeah.
When he comes.
Do you have any idea, Bob, on how much, what he's got?
No, normally they send us.
They said it's this sheet, yeah.
Right.
I didn't
It's
get one
usually a day
either.
or two before, I just hadn't noticed. We haven't received that. I'll just call him. Like you might.
I don't- I think the number will be big, but the acres will be small.
You might be afraid to drive in the snow that we had this morning. You might be-
I was.
All right, so we'll have to put that on the next one.
Yeah,
won't we?
well, looks like, yeah.
All right. That goes to the next meeting. Walks in here in the next 10 seconds. So then we're to your update.
Yeah, the comprehensive trail network plan, I believe I put this project schedule in the packet. I see it? No. I don't know. Wow. In the packet.
Well, it's in, we got 3 different packets, so let's see which one it's gonna be.
Well,
Happy then. Oh, I did.
Second to the last page.
yeah.
It's in one of my thirds.
Good. Yeah, they did.
So right now, they are collecting public input. I have to provide them with a list of businesses adjacent to the trail. So I know they're doing phone interviews with stakeholders.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's coming.
They did flip the graphic, remember last time? And they're working on a 10-foot map.
10 foot.
Right, which I assume will be
Well,
brought.
we couldn't
to-
get an 8.5 by 11, right? How can you do it 10?
That's what they told me, and I assume we'll see that at one of their next. Well, their deliverables is 3 presentations to us. This committee rather. So evidently this 10-foot map will give us a better view of the corridor and it'll be in the correct proper orientation. Identifying those 4 options and the constraints and opportunities of each. So yeah, it looks like they're gonna be here in January, March, and April. They did discover, I sent them the old MOU. Which, by the way, kind of reminds me of the public comments. I have an answer for e-bike fights. I have a response to that, but it does require, and we'll talk about that. in the meeting.
Yeah, because that'll have to be on.
Yeah,
the
that
e-bikes.
e-bikes are gonna
With the
be,
e-bikes,
yeah,
yeah.
they're gonna be made that. But anyway, they also discovered resolution 20-19. And I don't know if you recall this, this was an offer to Burnett County to do joint planning in the event there are change uses on the Candy. You guys recall that? Those supervisors that were here back in 2019.
Did we get no response?
Burnett County did not reciprocate.
Yep.
So we passed it as a resolution, but Burnett County did not. So it's funny that our consultants stumbled across that. That's SRF with the Gandy feasibility study. The next update is on the UTV ATV intensive park. 60% of the design work is complete. I think they need to work a little bit more on their layouts, exactly where those trails actually go. They did provide some specs on each of the trails in terms of width and grade. Remember, there's 4 different types of challenge levels, yeah. In there. Absent also was quantities, materials. A little bit more detail on the entry points thinking. We are gonna ask them to plan a fence, although we doubt we'll build a fence because of maintenance of this fence is gonna be a challenge, but we're gonna ask them to plan for it because again, this project is gonna be subsidized grants. So this will be, not only will this planning work is eligible, but obviously the implementation. So they're at 60% design. So I've been working with them on, some of the,
We get to see that at 60%, that's 60%.
I have it, I don't have it on a flash drive. But by the 23rd of this month, we'll have it at 90%. So I thought that would be a good time
At least
to
give
share
us.
with y'all, yeah.
Here's what it's like, okay.
So I think, by then, we'll have a pretty good concept of what it would look like. We as staff on January 5th, we're gonna sit down with them and get it to 100%. They have in their scope of work the deliverables to present to county board either in January, February, or March.
They'll probably pick February.
Just mark it down, put it on the calendar, one more.
I don't.
There's
Well,
gonna
they
be a
can
mass,
take longer because there won't be that much on the agenda.
Well, yeah, there won't be much on the
I
agenda
don't.
for anybody there.
the March County Board is gonna be a mass production ordinance. amendment. Just letting you know, the way everything's in queue with our season and all, and things in work. It's gonna be quite a lot of.
You could tend to do it right there, but
We could,
it's zoning ordinances will consent agenda.
Yeah, there you go.
we could bump a few of them back to February, so March wasn't so busy at the county board.
There you go. Yeah, or consent agenda.
Consent,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But I'll put the, let's stay there early, because our next meeting is the 21st. They said they'd have 90% done by the 23rd. If it is done, I'll throw it in the packet or hand it out or.
And that'd be nice to see just how it's starting to look. I think everybody's curious, even at the 60, what it's starting.
If you like, I could email you what I do. have.
But
I can email you what I do have, the 60%.
that would.
Yeah,
Why don't you? I would send that.
Yeah.
Send what it's done to there, because I mean, that's part of the part that we know something's going on.
The Doug and
Yeah. It'll just show that something is moving on.
yeah. With that, I think that's all I have.
You gonna get us a new. Just a list and.
What we're doing is
on these?
updating on the website. So.
Can we get into the website? Would you give me a hard copy there? That might be good too, or you're updating this on the website too, no, but
I'll put update one in the jacket for the 21st.
I think so, let's see, because like you said, that the Woodley Dam is open. Parking lot, people don't know that, maybe so that they know some of these are open.
You know, we have to sign it.
Yeah. And the Wanderers one is open, I think, how about the Milltown one?
Milltown one's open.
That one's open, see, so that'd be good to get out there. Well, the trails are gonna get packed, they'll be open in 2 weeks, so 2 weeks, they should be,
12, we open. Well, we're packing at 12.
yeah. So this would be good to get out by the next meeting or so.
Have 30-degree weather.
It'll snow every day then. It'll snow every day. It'll be 3
No.
feet.
And we'll be fine.
It's gonna melt.
They'll even have an address on it by then.
Yeah.
Sign will be up.
I don't know if we would do this here, and I should have asked Mo when he was here. The recycling center. Where's the place where we would get an update on what's going on with the recycling center with all the changes that were, maybe that's a question for you.
Yeah, I think, right now Mo is working with them with the original idea of if we had the, what was it, 1.3 million or
Yeah.
whatever the original amount was, can we make this thing more efficient and improve recycling? Since we've added
Yeah.
another 1.3 million, he's gone back and said, okay, what's the best way? And let's develop a business plan. So he is working through that. He can give updates to some extent, but at this point, we don't have a plan. We don't have a business model.
Okay.
They've got, the consultants are working on, here's what we think will work. Here's how much we think it will cost. So we just need to make sure we have a business plan that makes sense.
Because does it make sense to fix what we've got or start from new? I don't know,
Yeah, we're starting from new, you're right, and that's one of the questions I've asked is, what would happen if we, instead of trying to remodel that one, what if we sold that area,
Yeah,
given that it's a popular place, and put it someplace like over here at the,
yeah,
behind the highway building?
Oh, we don't want that.
The initial estimate is a whole lot more money to build. And so we've looked at that, and I've asked him to, we find that a little, but it will be more economic to do it out there. But, yeah, I think updates can start coming, but we're not quite at that point yet where we can say, here's the plan.
oh, I've already been there.
I
I've been there many times.
Okay. So work plan.
Right, this is our first, map. These, the items that are in here is what we anticipate, in 2023.
Might have to have,
Typically, we get the forest administrator grant coming in January. These are the ordinances are kind of a moving target. I have the SRF presentation there in January. Then we have Cody coming in February.
February might have to be blue too. We might not be done with our ordinances.
Maybe,
If they're going to that board, if we gotta move
or
on.
at the state review for waiting.
Yeah, if we're waiting for state reviews or something.
March is, heavy in forestry, as most years are, forester went to the committee, approved the timber sales, and you guys endorsed the annual report. Eric wants to present on the cover crop inventory, again, SRF in March. Tax deed listings, it's still up in the air with Act 216, but I left it on there again. Consultant presenting, the private water systems, the well regulation that we'll be taking on, we need to adopt the enabling ordinance for that. So I pushed that down in April because I'd like to start implementing that probably midsummer. I think, just for workflow purposes. At the earliest, I'm sorry. Yeah, the level 1 and level 5. So level 1 is well siting and level 5 was decommissioning. We probably won't implement that till mid-year. So but prior to that, we have to adopt the private water system. So, and it's laid out that way just for workflow, to delegate these new responsibilities to. Okay, we'll probably pick that off mid-year. May, first our fee schedule. We're a little unique. I learned that. Our committee does this a little more proactive. We started in May. Budget. Oh, I guess I have questions. We have the ag agents coming in January and in June. You guys want to keep that in place, or you want to move that? You scroll down again.
What did we see that
January,
every 6 months or every 4 months, didn't we have something?
We got them coming in January and in mid-year, and this last year, they came in additional time, it was like October. Cause I think you guys.
If they're doing anything, to check up on people.
I think, I
We-
mean, I like the October one, even though I wasn't here for that meeting, but it's before budget time,
Yeah,
or close to budget time. So, there again, September, October, just to be.
So
budget.
rather than coming
I
again,
like that a little early. By the time you get into October, I mean, it's good for you to
Yeah.
just say yes or no, but
Okay.
it's good for us to have that. a little bit.
Yeah, when would be best? If you're looking from a budget standpoint, at that point.
If you have one in June, Bob, did you say?
yes, we have, historically, it's been January and mid-year, like June or July.
June would be good. That gives us absorb feedback, see how they react.
Sure.
okay, then we should leave it, yeah. I'm just thinking some of these we want for updates, and like, well, we don't have West Central anymore in some of those, but I mean, so that we're checking in on anybody under us, that at least gives us some kind of an update of what they're doing.
Right.
Who else do we have under us?
Okay, and they were on January, Bob.
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
in June.
So, but I mean, do we want them back in January when they were just here in October? That's my question. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
well, they had all the new implemented plans they were gonna do, so we might as well hear it. They're pretty short and sweet. You know what I mean? So that we know that they have a work plan. for us.
Yeah, I mean, if you recall in October, they gave a,
Introduction to themselves.
exactly,
Yeah,
but that's the
yeah.
second time they've done that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see what they're gonna do now. We're gonna kind of ask them to be a little more specific and so
Yeah.
on. So I
Yeah,
think
what's your
January would be a
work
good
plan?
time to get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
make it a little more.
Yeah.
So who else
Leave
do
them
we
on
have?
January, leave them in
Yeah.
June.
Who else is under us? Who else is under? West Cap? No.
No,
Those are all in the general government,
They're all
those outside
under-
agencies, yeah.
So who do we have left?
Yeah, I do.
Those order. There's very many left. Because they're outside agencies.
Say,
Just the ag part, yeah. But we don't have West Central, we don't have any of that anymore. do we? Okay. All right,
Going on throughout the year, again. Typical stuff, we want to provide some user data on county trails in September. The trail counters that have been out there. The groundwater study results in October. So we can strike this one then, October.
Did you want to move that up to August?
We have them already.
You're right back to them. You can always add them back on if we need them somewhere. Towards the end of
June one up to May, maybe?
Yeah, January and June.
You know, May is rather empty. If you want to move them from June to May. you can.
Just cancel November right now for next year. Nothing on it.
Nothing. But we'll have, this is without any zoning things or any of that that comes
Yeah,
up.
it'll
So
be-
this is just the.
Bare bones. This is bare bones.
Zoning issues coming.
If we can cancel the county board meeting in February. 4 months
Guaranteed to
early, certainly
change.
we could cancel the committee meeting next November.
Kim could be up north driving around.
Yeah, I can drive around.
Yeah.
GPS.
Yeah.
This is the blue season, so November will be filled.
Well, we'll see what happens, how it works through the year, then what do we gotta change again? Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Never seen it. Right.
That's
That
good.
gets us next to the next one, because you're gonna have to add. Voting to our wildlife.
Well, I'll try to get him here on the 21st. And so he stays on task.
Yeah.
All bets are off. Denied. Made our own.
There's no price, everything's zero, so it's easy.
Same as last year.
Same as last year. So for the next one won't be too bad. I don't know if we'll have, do we have a,
Yeah,
we have two of them.
We got the Wojcicki and that one way coming back to the winery at the CUP. And then we've got rezone in the town of Alden, Odall, right behind the Little Falls Church. And that for end goal of the subdivision.
Do we leapfrog the closed session then? Is that what we did?
Yeah,
What we're doing, oh, the closed session is the lawyer said it's, we don't have enough information yet.
Right.
So that will.
Good, yeah, I know Joe did ask me to say, and Malia, that this closed session needs to be on the next agenda, probably subsequent one with
Yeah.
possible action pertaining to Blue Rock Quarry. So look for that on the 21st.
Oh, yeah.
After you put me in the paper.
So then that's a good transition to the 21st, so. Like Jason said, we got the Wojciech, the CUP, Big Dolls, District Chief. We might have the Pouncey floodplain. Maybe.
Both will be in the packet, and then for sure, hopefully floodplain, and then, and maybe renewable.
And maybe renewable, so that the zoning side of things is rather refined.
Yeah, the zoning side is still pretty full, yeah, the stuff. But the rest will be mostly updates, so we'll be sitting pretty good on those.
Yeah, Francisco's wants to dive into the forestry ordinance, so he's gonna be here on the 21st as well, to extend ATV usage season on county forest lands.
That's just, okay, so there won't be much because we had a lot of that already.
Well, we're having Cody come, right?
Yeah.
We got lots of zoning stuff, we got Brent, typical updates. Did you want me to talk about e-bikes?
We should start looking into it, because if they're already asking, we better find out.
I know we're
Because then they can run Lucia around too, so we gotta find out.
We got them in the plan, we gotta have sign it. They're allowed.
My e- Side by side.
What we can do, what we can't do. You guys really wanna go and go there?
No.
You really wanna do that?
What's that?
Because
What's that?
Want to know the information about e-bike, so that's the only reason.
they're allowed, and they're allowed on certain state trails. There has to be 3 criteria.
Is that on the agenda?
Yeah.
No.
It's not, we better, yeah, keep going. Debate it here, we haven't studied. Yeah.
Well, I can talk to you offline. But guys, if you really wanna, do that, we can.
Well, we should have that, I mean, from public comment, let's just find out.
I'll give you
Otherwise, you're gonna
information.
use the trail anyway. And I think they were worried about fees and that, you gotta have a fee to be on any state trail, so that's. Obviously, they should know that, doesn't matter what you're biking, walking, anything, so. Some of it's pretty obvious.
I'll give you an update with some information, and then it can drive where you wanna go.
Okay,
So I'll have
yeah,
that in.
sure, that's what I think we need to. An MOU, every one of them to do it or whatever, no, we'd have,
More than that.
of course it is, it wouldn't be that simple.
I think
We're
the
gonna
motion we
entertain
adjourn.
number.
Yeah, I make the motion we adjourn.
Hey,
I will second it.
hold it, I didn't accept it yet.
Undebatable.
No, if I accept it, if I don't accept it, all is gonna. Jason,
Wow.
I can say no.
Yeah.
Because you guys have
I have a solution to this.
Good, right?
Clean and